are here to guide you through how integrating managed payroll services within your HR operations can be a game changer. You'll hear about established businesses that have embarked on this journey, gain insights into their experience, and see a few of the lessons that they've learned along the way. So while we wait for the last few people to join, I'll run through some of today's key discussion topics. So we'll cover the power of alignment, embracing technology to unlock collaboration, data-driven decisions, thinking differently, enhancing the employee experience, and future-proofing your business. Everything we discussed today does reflect the dynamic nature of our field, and I'm really excited to lead today's session, which, as always, promises to be super insightful and enriching. Our panel will aim to give you knowledge and tools to provide accurate, compliant, and efficient payroll services. So now it seems that everyone's here, let's dive in. I'll start by introducing our panelists. So joining me today is Oliver G. Oliver is Worx's Enterprise Development Director. He's worked his career in HR and payroll across a variety of roles at NGA HR, now Deloitte, Oracle, and now he's with Worx. In his current role, Oliver is focused on enterprise sales, both for Worx's technology and SAP SuccessFactors. We also are joined by Gert-Jan Koeps. He's director at Deloitte Consulting. Now, unfortunately today, Gert-Jan has had some webcam issues, happens to the best of us, but he will be here and he will be answering all of your questions. Gert-Jan's worked for over 20 years in HR tech in various roles, from solution architect to implementation, account director of HR and payroll services, and now within Deloitte Netherlands, Gert-Jan is responsible for the cloud SAP HCM team, which also includes payroll tech. And Gert-Jan is also chair of the DEI Council for Deloitte. And me, I'm Natalie Lloyd. And for those of you who are just joining or who aren't sure, I am JJ Recruitment's Global Customer Success Manager. I support our client base worldwide in finding solutions to unlock strategic growth and elevate your business. So I've been with JJ for about 3 years now, was absolutely immersed into the world of global payroll and HR, had some brilliant opportunities to meet industry leaders, gain industry insights, and highlight HR and payroll significance in management trends, tech, leadership, and compliance. I'm here to support you in achieving your growth goals, going beyond placing candidates and working with decision makers as a trusted advisor, understanding your unique needs and challenges and providing sustainable solutions. Whether that's through recruitment, system implementation, launching key projects, or managing a culture change following a restructure, I'm here for all of your change needs. As I'm sure many of you know, I'm passionate about raising the profile of payroll. By facilitating knowledge sharing within the community, I am absolutely certain that we can all unlock the strategic potential of payroll within our organisations. And that's exactly why I do webinars like this, to support payroll and HR leaders worldwide to unlock knowledge and continue to grow in the ever-changing industry. So very quickly before we begin, I'd like to read out our legal disclaimer. So this presentation does not provide definitive answers to individual queries and in some places takes views on matters which are uncertain. It is not intended to be relied upon in any specific context or as a substitute for seeking advice, legal or otherwise, on a specific circumstance, as each case may be different. So now that we've all got to know each other, let's delve into today's discussion topics. So as I mentioned while we were waiting for the last few people to join the call, Oliver, Gert-Jan and I are here to kind of guide you through how integrating managed payroll services within your HR operations can be a game changer. So we'll discuss established businesses who have embarked on the journey, we'll gain insights into their experience, and we'll hear a little more about lessons that they learned along the way. We will also have 2 polls throughout today's webinar, which I encourage you to participate in. And once the answers are in, Oliver and Gert-Jan will give their views on the answers. So vote, question them. There is a Q&A box as well. I would really encourage you to get your questions in. We'll have some time throughout the discussion to answer any of those, so just keep them coming. Throughout the hour, we'll be exploring 6 key focus areas, which will include the power of alignment. So here you'll discover how aligning NPS with your HR strategy can create a harmonious workflow, boost operational efficiency, and foster a unified workforce approach. Embracing technology to unlock collaboration. Here we'll learn about leveraging cutting-edge technology to enhance NPS integration, resulting in a smooth, efficient payroll process. Data-driven decisions. Here we'll uncover how integrated managed payroll services can deconstruct intuition and offer deeper workforce insights, enabling data-driven strategies for business growth and informed decision-making. Thinking differently. Here we can explore how MPS can make your HR function more adaptable and responsive, preparing your business to swiftly navigate the changing corporate landscape. Effective change can only truly be driven by insight and expertise, but where does payroll come in? Enhancing the employee experience. We'll delve into how integrating managed payroll services can enrich the employee journey within your organisation, boost satisfaction and retention, and that's from onboarding all the way through to development. And finally, future-proofing your business. We'll get a glimpse into the future of HR and payroll and understand how the continuous integration of MPS positions your business at the forefront of industry evolution. The webinar is ideal for business strategists, HR directors, finance leaders, or anyone seeking to understand the strategic benefits of integrating MPS within your HR functions. So enough from me. Let's start off with the first set of questions. Ollie, you're up first. How do you see the integration of managed payroll services within an organisation's HR strategy helping to improve efficiency of the business and improve employee engagement?
Thanks, Natalie. I think with that question, the most important thing to say at this point is we need to understand what a business needs, what it's trying to achieve, what are the pain points, because you can't really answer the question unless you know what that is. And as an organisation, I think any organisation embarking on a journey looking at changing their payroll needs to ask, why are we doing it? So we, as a vendor, the first thing that I and my colleagues would want to know is how things are done now. What are you doing now? Where are the inefficiencies? How they can be improved? And a vendor like SD Worx, you know, for a vendor like us, our job is to help understand those things. Often a customer wants to outsource, but they don't think about process change and challenging why they're doing things in a particular way. And it's our business to do this stuff. So we do it for tens of thousands of customers across the UK and Europe. We've got our biggest customer in the UK is about 135,000 employees. So, and I would add that this process of analysis, of discovery, is really important, because managed payroll is not one size fits all. It is for some vendors that at the lower end of the market, they have a more structured, prescriptive way of doing payroll, but in most organisations, it's not one size fits all. Retail is very different to financial services. So, go back to your question, how does managed payroll service improve efficiency and employee engagement? From what I've seen, moving to managed payroll service is going to bring a few benefits. You're going to, in terms of efficiency, you should expect to reduce admin. Payroll is admin intensive, and if you've been doing it in a particular way for a number of years, what you find is that there's a lot of workarounds, a lot of manual processes, a lot of stuff done on spreadsheets. So a provider should pick these complexities up and make sure they're fully automated, that they're accurate, that you're fully compliant with regulations. And again, that goes back to my point about challenging the way you do things. I think you're also going to get streamlined processes. Most payroll services, payroll systems and services will have automated systems for things like timesheets, expenses, tax filing, and so on. And then you're also going to get integration. A lot of organisations haven't managed to get integration working, and that's one of the reasons why they're looking at payroll, and that's a huge benefit. So what you should get is freeing up in-house resources if you go to a managed payroll service, because you're pushing it out to someone else. And in terms of employee engagement, that was one of the questions. What you would expect to get is obviously accurate, timely payments, which is going to, people go to work for their money. So you're going to get better morale if people are paid correctly, obviously. Also, then you can get self-service, which gives people access to pay documents, personal information, which then reduces questions to HR, and you should get better compliance, because managed payroll providers are going to have more structured compliance in the organisation. So that's my thought really on your first question.
Okay, thanks, Ollie. And Gert-Jan, Given your expertise in HR tech transformations, how important is it for companies to align their payroll services with HR strategies to ensure a seamless workflow? And how can the alignment be achieved for strategic growth?
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. So, of course, at Deloitte, we're talking to a lot of customers that are in different phases of their transformation and thinking also about roadmaps for their overall HR system landscapes and technologies. What I often see is that payroll is treated with a certain level of risk adversity, right? If it ain't broken, don't try to fix it. That's a bit the approach that a lot of customers are taking. As Ollie already mentioned, very important to have people paid on time, and a lot of companies are actually afraid to touch it, I would say. And I think, of course, it's important to keep that risk in mind. At the same time, I think a lot of companies are actually missing out on opportunities if they don't also consider payroll or payroll services as part of this overall road mapping and strategy. And there's a couple of areas that I can mention here. I think, first of all, the ensuring that your data is consistent across the different systems. And so between your HR and your payroll system, there's some data that is quite clearly related to HR and some data clearly related to payroll. But there's also the in-between items, right? And a lot of things when it comes to salary benefits data is actually can be split between two systems, and you want to ensure that that data is consistent in order to be used for reporting and other purposes. I think secondly, the processes that go across these systems, you want to ensure that those are streamlined, of course. So what I see often happening with more sort of older systems or outdated technology is things like double data entry that needs to be done, error handling, which is not done in a very efficient way. So by having really more modern technology and MPS services, you will be able to reduce that and also have an integrated approach when it comes to processes like onboarding and offboarding, etc. And then thirdly, I think Ollie already referred to it also, the employee experience. I think that's becoming an increasingly important topic, especially in the HR space overall. And quite often for payroll, this has been reduced to payslip access, but it goes further than that, right? Especially in modern days and with different timings and really sort of fast access, employees are expecting a direct access to their payslips as soon as there are certain changes being done. And same goes for workflows, right? As soon as they do certain changes to their benefits, they expect this to be sort of seamless directly in the other system. So that's why it's important also to think about this. Now, how do all these elements then lead to strategic growth? I think overall, the fact that you will have less barriers within your HR and payroll department will actually free up time for HR overall. We will come back to that later also. You will be able to have more standardized procedures, right, between your HR and payroll system. And I think most importantly, the overall insights that you will have by having aligned data in things like your overall workforce trends, right? The way that you are able to use compensation packages in your talent processes is just very critical. And in turn, you will be able to then make more strategic decisions on things like compensation packages and the way that you're using this in your overall talent process. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Gert-Jan. So I'm going to go straight in here with our first poll. So our first poll today is based around the impact of technology on managed payroll service integration. So the question here is, how essential is emerging tech such as AI and automation in the integration of managed payroll services within HR operations? So for those of you on listen only, there's 4 possible answers here. So A is crucial for enhancing efficiency and collaboration. B, useful but not a primary factor for successful integration. C, beneficial for data analysis and strategic decision making. Or D, overemphasized, the human element is more important. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to choose an answer. I do encourage you all to vote, and Ollie and Gert-Jan will comment on those answers as well. So just while people are having a quick read through and deciding on their answer, Ollie and Gert-Jan, do you have any opinions on the answers on the screen, or maybe have an answer yourself? And I don't want this to kind of sway anyone to click something they say about. because nothing's wrong here. Ollie and Gert-Jan?
Are you expecting an answer? Emerging tech has always played a part in the automation of payroll. I mean, I don't believe you can. My understanding is you can't run a payroll service now without it being automated. So we have to expect emerging technology to play a part. Automation, obviously, Jan mentioned workflows. That kind of automation is standard. So if someone, an employee, clicks something on self-service, they expect the process to automate through to sign off by a line manager or something like that. And AI is the big buzz at the moment. People are worried about taking jobs away and so on. I think the human factor will always play a part. If you think you go back to, 100 years ago, 80 years ago, there were huge typing pools in every business. They've disappeared, and new jobs have been created, and we found ourselves with, pretty much full employment in a country like UK. So I think they will always play a part, but there'll always be a need for people, I think. Don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I actually got disconnected. Seems I'm having more technical issues. So,
Okay.
but it's fine. I got reconnected now. So we're still talking about the overall the poll, right, and the responses to that.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I think most people have put their votes in now. So I can run through the poll results, and Jan, if you want to comment on those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, well, it's interesting to see, right, that there's a bit of an uneven spread, I would say, overall, even though the first one is scoring the highest. But I think this pretty much confirms what I also see with customers talking about things like AI overall, right? Not only for payroll, but overall for HR technology also. There's very different views, right? And I think it's important to just be very realistic about it also, right? And not to sort of think that it's just going to be sort of the magic solution for all your problems. But at the same time, we also see that it's really going very fast, right? In all different areas. But I think for a lot of people, it's still, they are not really sure exactly where it will be a benefit and how it will be a benefit. I can say that especially on the side of payroll, if you look at the tasks that you're executing for a payroll run, they are very, very much the same every month, right? A lot of them at least are. And even if you look at error handling, that is definitely also gives a lot of options for further automation. So I think I definitely see it myself as being crucial. However, it needs to be proven also based on the technology that people are using. And customers, as I was referring also to in my first response, have a legacy landscape, right? They don't start from scratch. They have a legacy landscape with all sort of different elements in that landscape. And that makes it a little bit more challenging sometimes to adapt to new technologies. But I definitely see it as crucial going forward.
Super, thank you, Jan. So for those of you watching live, you will be able to see the results on the screen, of course. But for anyone listening in on audio only, the poll results are crucial for enhancing efficiency and collaboration, came in at 40%. At 30%, useful but not a primary factor for successful integration. The 20% of you thought that this was beneficial for data analysis and strategic decision making. And at 10%, people thought it was overemphasized and the human element is more important. So quite an even split there. But we'll move on to the next topic. And here we'll cover embracing technology to unlock collaboration. So Gert-Jan, in the realm of HR transformation, how critical is the role of advanced technology in fostering a more integrated and efficient payroll process that promotes organizational collaboration?
I think you can safely say that using advanced technology is truly transformative, right? A transformative power, I would say, almost. There's a couple of things that support that. I think I already mentioned before about the barriers between HR and payroll, right? And you do not only have that in your department, but also in your data, right? So you're really able to eliminate data silos and also ensure that you have a more seamless exchange of data between the systems. Secondly, also referring to the question about AI, you are able to further automate repetitive tasks, right? And that is in the area of data entry, for example, but also calculations and certain compliance checks that you need to do. And thirdly, also on insights. So really real-time insights will enable organizations to have faster decisions on their overall workforce, and that's becoming more and more important. We talk a little bit later also about the fast changing pace of business, but really managing the workforce in an agile way, being constantly aware of the costs, right, which also requires you to have the payroll data freely available. Looking at budgets really enables people and companies to be more strategic about their overall decision making. So the employee access that we spoke about earlier is not only relevant for employees, but also for the HR and payroll departments, because if you're able to give people access and also empower them to do certain data changes or find responses to questions that they might have, you will also reduce the overall administrative burden for your HR and payroll department. So that also means that you will then have options for further integrating your HR and payroll departments. There are a lot of organizations where this is still quite split, but also you see more and more organizations that are able to combine those departments with different skill profiles. And then in turn, this will allow your HR department to really focus on the more strategic initiatives that you would like them to focus on, right? So, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And Ollie, how does technology support the integration of payroll services, and what are the benefits?
Yeah, that was really interesting listening to what Jan had to say, actually. And you know, from my perspective, innovation is central to integrating payroll services. Most modern payroll systems now are cloud-based, and they use standardized. Sorry, we're talking about integration. Actually, standardized integration processes, which means you can integrate more easily with other systems, third-party systems, HR systems, and that does remove the need for complex out-of-date transfers, and you can get real-time synchronization. And there's a lot of talk around APIs that enable this easy communication, so you can create a single data environment, and then that, picking up some of the stuff Jan was saying around manual data entry and errors, reduces all of that stuff. Although it's worth mentioning, in some organizations, APIs may not be the answer. A simple file transfer, status, leavers and changes might be enough for a smaller organization. So it's about finding what fits, what technology is actually useful, remembering how much you can keep it simple. Jan talked about self-service as well, and I think that's a hugely important piece of technology to reduce admin and engaging employees. All of those payroll documents. I think first question that we had, Jan talked about employees expect to have access to data. So pay slips, P60s, P11Ds, just general pay documents, policies, that kind of stuff. Employment, policies, expenses policies, this kind of stuff can be put up there. I look at it regularly to check what I'm allowed to claim, and it's really helpful. So, but I would say just on this whole thing around technology and putting technology in is. You need a systematic approach to introducing technology, and I think that giving yourself enough time to make the change, to do the analysis, and putting it in little by little works best. I think some organizations where I've seen they've had to go for a big bang approach, it's been very stressful, because that's sometimes driven by an end of life, or maybe the business has been sold and the parent company have put them on a transition services agreement, and that big bang can be often too much, and that applies across all applications as well as payroll. So you find that if you give yourself the time and you do the core stuff and gradually roll stuff out, that putting technology out like that works best. That's my thoughts on that.
Lovely. And Jan, have you anything to add now that Ollie's kind of answered his question?
No, I can only agree, right, to what he was saying about these different topics. No, nothing to add at the moment.
Perfect. So we'll move on to data-driven decisions. Ollie, I'm going to ask you first. Considering the trend in the market is all around data-informed decision-making, how does an integrated payroll system contribute to this?
Yeah, so you're right. There's a lot of talk about data-driven decision making. There's a lot of buzzwords around it, and integrating obviously the payroll system will help with this. If you've just got payroll data standalone, it's not contributing as much as it could. At the core, clearly decisions can be made better if you've got a single source of truth, as is the phrase, across your HR data. So if you've got all the data from payroll, HR, T&A consolidated in one place, then you're going to get a single view of the workforce, and you can report on trends, talent, employee productivity, all that kind of stuff. Jan was talking about that. And it's worth thinking about how that can be accessed. So most modern payroll systems have got built-in reporting tools. We've seen that for years. Or you can use a third-party business intelligence tool. You know, there's lots of vendors out there that do that can query different databases. Or you can have a data lake where all the data can be interrogated centrally, and that's the kind of current thinking. I was at an event a while back, employee engagement event, and it was talked about by several CHROs who talked about using a data lake, because then they can get you know, best of breed technology, so they can have an ATS solution, an HR system, different technology, and pulling it all the data together, so they get the best of all worlds. And that's the kind of, but you have to have that single source of truth to get the data all in one place and be able to use it. It's worth mentioning security. While you've got to get the data out, you also need to think about who has access to it and to what level of detail. You need to think of a way of dividing it up. And this is as important, I think, as having it all in one place. You know, you don't want a junior person having access to the CEO's compensation, for example. So you've got to consider that. And I mean, no IT department would let you get away with it and make it available without some security. So once you get the data out, though, you can then analyze it and identify areas of, you know, cost optimization and deal with employee concerns about compensation. There's lots of, you know, and HM knows all about that sort of stuff. So I think to finish, integrated payroll systems are not just about processing salaries, they're also about getting information on the workforce that can be used by HR to make strategic decisions. And this has to form part of your business case and return on investment. You know, you need to be talking about this stuff, because that's what senior leadership will expect or want to see when giving you budgets for this all work. Thanks, Natalie.
Super. So, Jan, Ollie's throwing you under the bus there, saying you know all about this stuff.
Of course.
With your obviously significant experience in solution architecture and implementation, how do you see integrated payroll data shaping strategic decision-making processes within organisations?
Yeah, well, I think Ollie touched already on quite the most important points, right? And I also mentioned before that yeah, my experience, and I think a lot of companies are often, also software companies, but also consulting companies, are often not fully aware, I think, of the fact that customers are dealing with an existing legacy environment, right? We are, and I think that's also our purpose. We want to show the future, right? But at the same time, I think it's also very important to really have a reality check, right? And especially being a solution architect, I was always faced with the reality check of where customers are at this moment, right? And how can you bring them then with their current landscape into the next phase? And that's a combination of, first of all, of course, looking at the technology and seeing what is the best option there, considering also that all the technologies are, of course, also increasingly bringing out new functionality, right? So what is new today can be different tomorrow already. So that makes it sometimes difficult also to make decisions. But as Ollie already referred also, it is not only a technological decision, but it also has to do with a little bit more the strategic side of things, in the sense of, yeah, what do we want to focus on as a company? What are certain KPIs or certain data that we want to monitor? And based on that, you can then also decide what would be the best way to get it out, be it a data lake or being it some standard report from a different system. And those are quite complicated discussions and decisions overall, but not impossible to read. Yeah, I think it's great. That's the reason why I'm still also enjoying it so much. But it's difficult for customers to have these kind of decisions. So I think, summarizing, I think it's the combination of the technological side of things and the strategic side of things that you need to be able to bring together. So.
Perfect. So we'll move on to thinking differently. So Gert-Jan, how does the integrated approach, managed payroll services, encourage organisations to adopt a more adaptable and forward-thinking stance in today's rapidly changing business environment?
Yeah. Well, as already mentioned before, right? I think we all see in our personal lives, but the business, I think the business environment is the same. That things are changing with an ever-fasting pace, right? So you want a lot of companies, organizations are looking for organizational agility, right? That they want to be able to adapt quite fast, but that's not always so easy. So I think first of all, using managed payroll services can actually free up time and expertise from your own HR department. And that was mentioned before, but I think in a fast changing world, the focus that they need to have on things like workforce planning, talent acquisition, retention, but also change management, for example, right? A lot of projects that are ongoing in organization, changes that are ongoing, which makes change management key. So that will enable them to focus on this. Using a managed payroll service usually also means that you're able to be much more scalable and flexible than if you would do it in-house. With fast changes, it also means that you might have to really structurally change your workforce overall, which means setting up new departments, but also having reductions or increases of your population, and having those managed payroll services usually make it more easy to also adapt to these kind of changes. And the fast pace of change is not only related to business environments, but also goes for legislation and compliance, right? So also there's lots of things happening, new rules and legislation being released. So you also want to ensure that you have that compliance expertise also available, which is also usually more easy if you have an expert company that is helping you with this. And then coming back to what Ollie already mentioned regarding data-driven insights, and I mentioned it myself before also a couple of times. So quite often the managed payroll services solutions have quite strong reporting and analytics tools that you can use. Of course, it doesn't mean that you need to really ensure that the data that you want to report over is also available in that system, right? So it's not always straightforward, but at least these tools are available and can be used. And you're then also able to use these kind of insights in things like talent, comp strategy, workforce planning, etc. There's a lot of companies that I talk to that are increasingly also working towards a more matrix structure, right? So they have their normal organizational structure in which they do their normal business, between quotes. But then also having temporary projects, sort of a matrix organization that they want to use. And they also have an increasing need to, first of all, organize things accordingly, but also plan this, right? And also see the budgets and costs related to this. And that makes it very important to also have that data available. And I see that you are really able to do that when you use these kind of payroll services.
Fantastic. And obviously it's all about thinking differently. But Ollie, how do you think differently, and how do you drive innovation and change through payroll within the HR function of a business?
I think I go back to what I said at the beginning, the point I made, which is when you embark on changing your payroll and potentially outsourcing, you need to challenge what you do currently. Obviously, you need to keep certain processes and keep running a payroll, but it's a golden opportunity to ensure that you challenge the status quo and remove as much of the admin intensive nature of the work and the manual processes and so on. So, and Jan mentioned change, and change management. Change is really important. It's not just about changing the system. It's also asking yourselves, where's the data coming from? Do we still need that data? Is the legacy data and are the processes still relevant? Often companies can be quite precious about what they do. People are like, no, this is how we've always done things and it works. And I think I mentioned earlier about organizations not wanting to touch payroll. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if you do think about it, then you need to be open to change and make sure the new service delivers for the business, for the senior management. And so I think you need to make sure you embrace the business in the process, make sure it works for as many people as possible. And that is going to get you, more likely get you the funding to do it as well. To make sure it's good for both the HR payroll function of the business, but also the wider business and the leadership. So I think you also need to choose the project team wisely, and need people who are ready to embrace change and representing the business needs and thinking outside of the normal things, and that's how you'll get innovation. And I think we talked about reporting, and I mentioned it just a minute ago, and there's often an issue around reporting when the business doesn't get the right data, and that will help a lot in terms of getting, answering the question about driving innovation. So you need to ask what senior management want in terms of data, and then I think that will give you the innovation and change that you need. So I think it becomes more than just about cost saving and becomes about adding value. So while innovation is great, as I mentioned before, you also need to think about the return on investment and the importance of understanding the key numbers and the return, what the return would look like. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on that.
Of course, thank you very much. So we're going to move on to our second poll now. So this one is all about prioritizing the benefits of payroll services integration. So the question this time is, which benefit of integrating managed payroll services within your HR function do you consider most vital for business growth? So again, we've got 4 possible answers here. And so for those of you who can't see the screen, A, improved operational efficiency and workflow cohesion. B, enhanced data-driven decision-making capabilities. C, better adaptability to market changes and innovation. D, enriched employee experience and retention. And E, future-proofing the business against upcoming market trends. That's 5 answers, obviously I can't count. But the poll is on your screen now, so if you want to get your answers in, and while people are putting their votes in, Ollie and Gert-Jan, I have a question that I'm regularly asked when it comes to integrating managed payroll services, and something people really want to know is, how secure is it?
It's very secure. I would say our entire reputations are built on data security. So we have, we have to lead in that sense. And if ever there's any kind of data breach, I mean, SD Worx has never had a data breach. We've had people attack us, but we've never had a breach of data. And when it does happen, it gets into the news. You get gossip. You get all sorts of terrible things. So having the absolute very latest security and testing it is absolutely what we're about. Our whole business will fail if something serious happens. So we have to be better than everybody, and we have to be better than our customers. We are constantly going to be attacked. So I would say, and I would say this, wouldn't I? But for me, I think we are secure, and companies I've worked for in the past have been the same. Data security is crucial, and we have the very best security that money can buy.
For sure.
Maybe just a small thing to add to that also, because of course customers it's on top of their mind, right? Especially on their security departments. But what we also see is that customers are of course moving away from the older on-premise solutions towards cloud solutions, right? So the topic of security, regardless of the topic for managed payroll services, but is a topic anyways for customers, right? So I think it's only good to hear what Ollie was referring to work with businesses where this is such a critical topic, so that you ensure that those procedures are in place. Because I see a lot of customers also that are going to the cloud with their HR solution, still struggling with this sort of new way of thinking, right? They're still very much in the on-premise way of thinking, and all the related procedures that are coming with that. But the cloud world is a new world, basically, right? So security in that sense is always relevant.
Of course. And like I always say when people do ask that question, MPS providers do prioritise your data security. So really solid measures to protect your sensitive employee information. And what they do is allow organisations to focus on core business activities with greater peace of mind that data is safe and secure. So I know Dan's talked quite a lot on the compliance piece, and MPS providers are there to ensure your business stays compliant with ever-changing advancements. So thank you both for that. Now that we've sort of chatted on for a few minutes, we'll go with the poll results. So a massive 64% of people believe that the benefit of integrating managed payroll services with your HR function is improved operational efficiency and workflow cohesion. So 64% of you think that is most vital for business growth. Closely behind that, well, not very closely behind that, I lie, on 14% is enhanced data-driven decision-making capabilities, and that's sitting on a par with future-proofing the business against upcoming market trends. 7% of you believe enriched employee experience and retention is most vital for business growth, and surprisingly, 0% have come back thinking that better adaptability to market changes and innovation is most vital. So, Gert-Jan and Ollie, have you any comments to make on the poll results at all?
Yeah, it makes sense to me that people would choose improved operational efficiency. I think all 5 of them are really important things. But obviously, if you can outsource your payroll, you would want to improve your efficiency and improve your workforce cohesion. And you'd expect that as a priority, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Same time, I think it's also from the 5, it's the easiest measurable item, right? And I say easy, but that's not always the case, because I think you really need to be clear on your current insights in, okay, where can I reach this efficiency and how can I quantify it? But the other ones are, of course, a little bit less easy to quantify, right? So I'm not questioning them, of course, but as I said before, I think customers should not underestimate what they can achieve by having, for example, these data-driven decisions, right? But it just requires, I think, a little bit of a deeper look into where is this data actually stored and how can I use it. But overall, it's a very recognizable response, yes.
Super. So we'll move on to enhancing employee experience. Now, only 7% of people clicked on this as their poll answer. So hopefully this will give people a little bit more understanding on how integrating a managed payroll service can enhance employee experience. So Ollie, how does a managed payroll service improve the employee experience? And that's from onboarding all the way through to ongoing development.
Yeah, so I think if you introduce a managed payroll service with self-service and remove the bottlenecks of manual processes to enhance the internal processes, then you should improve the employee experience as part of one of the end results of that. It's not just about self-service for the employee wider workforce, it's also about whether managers get access to employee data. I think this was talked about earlier. Managers need to get access to employee data, reports, dashboards that give them accurate information, and that managers are employees as well. So that if they get that information, they will get an improved experience. You also have to remember that if you put an intuitive self-service portal in place that's easy to use for both an 18-year-old school leaver and a 65-year-old near retirement, with minimal clicks, that's straightforward to use, that's going to improve the employee experience as well. You should expect to enhance the experience with quicker paychecks. A managed payroll service should be able to get people paid on time and accurately, and that's, as I mentioned earlier, is crucial. You're going to reduce paperwork, which we talked about. A lot of automation, benefits enrollment and so on and so forth will take paperwork out. Self-service access obviously is going to help. Accurate payments, things are more transparent and visible. Data, people can see the data that you have on them, and therefore allow the HR function also to focus more on the things they want to do. By offloading the payroll tasks, they can spend more time on the higher value HR tasks, which again, the HR function is also an employee group, and they will have an improved employee experience. So I think that more efficient payroll process has a positive experience in lots of ways on the onboarding, the employee experience around onboarding, admin, people getting their, so a new joiner gets their payslip on time, you're going to get happier employees, better retention, and in theory that should drive growth.
Brilliant. And Jan, as chair of Deloitte's DEI Council, we'll have a look at your focus on HR tech and DEI. So how does an integrated approach to payroll and HR services foster a more inclusive and satisfying employee journey?
Yeah, of course, this is very much a topic that is a lot in development, and there's a very large, a little bit more softer side to this also, in the sense of the cultural change that companies need to go through in order to become a more diverse and safe environment. But there's some very hard data things also on the way, and I think that the most obvious one that I can think of, especially for the countries within the European Union, is the recently decided pay directive on equal pay that is going to be in effect soon. And I think in UK you're already a bit further ahead in that sense in the reporting that you do on equal pay between genders. But also in the EU, countries will soon and companies will soon be obliged to start reporting on their pay gaps, right? And if you say pay, of course that sounds quite easy, but the reality is that what you consider as being part of pay is a definition, right? It's not only your monthly salary. There's a lot of elements that are also part of that, which, as I mentioned before, are not necessarily always stored in your payroll system. So your overall data sources, definition of what is pay, and then also the reports that you need to put out to reveal these gaps will become mandatory. And of course, the next step will be that companies will also be asked to reduce these, right? So I think that's really a more legislative part that is coming that I think not all companies are always aware of. But tied to that, of course, I mean, I don't think you should necessarily wait for legislation in order to take these initiatives. You also want to, of course, ensure within your company that things like policies, benefits are granted equally, actually, across your complete company. And that does not only relate to gender, but can be in all aspects of the diversity landscape, basically, right? So I think that would be the most obvious ones. But besides that, if you look at things like ESS, employee self-service, allowing employees to really be flexible in when they would like to view their data or do any data changes, I think is definitely also helping a lot. The fact that these kind of portals are often also multilingual, right? So can be offered in any language that people are speaking. And then also these kind of services come with additional help for people with disabilities, for example. And then you can think of things like screen readers for the keyboard or certain navigations for people that are visually handicapped. So those are just a few elements that you can think of.
Amazing, thank you. And Ollie, finally, when it comes to future-proofing your business, how essential is the role of integrated payroll services in ensuring businesses remain agile and competitive in the ever-changing market landscape?
Yeah, I mean, agility is vital. It's really incumbent on all businesses not to stand still. Any technology you put in now needs to be scalable to deal with business growth. So we talked about cloud technology. So obviously that means that the technology is always current. You shouldn't, cloud technology should never become legacy because it'll always be the latest thing. It'll always be upgraded. But you also need to make sure the technology is scalable. So I think I mentioned scalability earlier. You need to, for example, if you acquire a business, if you've outsourced your payroll to an organization, and then you acquire a business, you need the service to be able to incorporate that really easily. It needs to be able to adjust to accommodate that fluctuation. It needs to be able to allow that organization to come on board in its current state. So the software has to be flexible enough to have a separate company and all of the terms and conditions to be built in without it having to be incorporated into the main body, and it needs to make sure, and that will allow your operations to keep scaling efficiency without a massive restructure. So I think it's really, really important. I was at the HR Tech Show last week, and there were quite a few businesses coming on our stand talking about the fact they'd got XYZ product, HR product, payroll product, and it wasn't fit for purpose because they'd grown from 700 to 1,600 people and it was no longer scalable and they couldn't use it. So you've got to make sure that whatever you do, and this is across all HR, is scalable, and that allows you to remain agile. You also need a provider that's going to keep up to date with HMRC changes and trends in the market. If you've got a small payroll department, you're relying on them keeping abreast of what the HMRC is up to. Jan talked about EU legislation changes. There's a lot of this stuff that is floating around, and your vendor or your service provider should be closely aligned with these organisations and the HMRC to keep on top of this, to basically be your eyes and ears and make sure you don't need to think about it. And then I think my final point on this is you want your provider to advise you on the impact on the business of some change. So an example would be that RTI, when that came in, what's that going to do to us? How does that work? They should be able to do a webinar and tell you what this is about, and it's incumbent on your provider to advise you on that change and make sure that you're prepared for any legislative change. I think those are the key points around agility.
Sure, thank you. And Jan, did you have anything to add there?
No, I don't think so. I think we've said it a couple of times before already, also, right? And this agility, I mean, it might sound a little bit like a fashion statement, right? Everyone wants to be agile, but I think we also all realize how difficult it is, right? If you have an existing structure, you have an existing technology, you have processes in place, yeah, you just don't snap with your fingers and it's different, right? So this is really, really difficult. But I think, as we also try to explain in answering these questions, is that by using these kind of outsourced and standardized services, it can actually enable you to be more agile, right? To focus on your own internal changes and don't have to worry about the more mandatory monthly piece and processes that also need to run safely in order to keep your employees satisfied. So.
Perfect, thank you. So that is all 6 of our secrets that we've explored this morning. So just to round it up, integrating managed payroll services can streamline your HR processes, boost efficiency, and free up valuable time for your team to focus on more strategic initiatives. By leveraging the expertise of a qualified provider, you can ensure your payroll is accurate, compliant, and secure. A successful implementation does require careful planning, clear communication across your HR function. So if you are considering making the switch to a managed payroll service, do feel free to connect with either Oliver, Gert-Jan, or myself. We're here to answer any further questions and to help you navigate the process. So for more things, payroll, unlocking strategic growth, anything that you want to know, you can tune into tomorrow's payroll question time as well. With Nick Day from JGA, Simon Parsons from Worx, Richard George of the Payroll Centre, the pension regulators, Andy Nichols, and Karen Thompson from AAB. And I'm sure many of you have joined those before, and they are always super insightful and a real nice opportunity for you to get your kind of burning questions answered as well. So I have literally just popped the link in the chat box for any of you who haven't yet signed up. And of course, keep an eye out for JGA's HR and payroll events as well. We're running webinars, roundtables, and I would like to see as many of you joining the conversations as possible. But for now, that's all for today. Just want to thank all of our listeners for joining us on today's webinar. And of course, a massive thank you to our fantastic panelists, Oliver G and Gert-Jan Coops. As always, your expertise and knowledge have been inspiring, insightful, and I've certainly learned a lot. So thank you. Do remember to sign up for PQT. Have a great week, and do feel free to reach out with any further questions on integrating a managed payroll service.
Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for being a great host.
Thank you. See you soon.